Hello, I'm John. I'm sat on board Corrick. We've had a couple of days with really rather lovely sailing, including getting the kite up. And in a little bit of a departure from format, I'm just going to concentrate on that because it's a fairly big subject in its own right. I promise that normal service will be resumed next week. I hope you enjoy this video. We were in Mull the other day and we spotted a really nice boat, an MG 335, and I've sailed them before and they're really lovely, and we spoke to the owners and we talked about it being a lovely racing boat, and we ended up having a little bit of a conversation about Spinnakers, and they said they don't do it because they find it all a bit daunting, and to be honest, Spinnakers can be a bit daunting because when they go wrong, there's quite often,
you have to react quite quickly.
Well, there's quite a lot of string, and it isn't immediately obvious where it all goes. In the ideal world, if you set everything up right, then it will stay right, so long as you do the drills right. But there's a lot of string, so I thought what I might do is just walk through what string goes where and how we set it all up. I thought it might be worth just being really clear what this video is trying to do. It's not trying to be a beginner's guide to flying Spinnakers, and it's not meant to be a Spinnaker masterclass. What it's ideally hoping to do is provide people with just the basics of flying the Spinnaker light-handed, or indeed solo, in such a way that it can enhance your cruising experience when you're having to go downwind, when the wind is a bit fickle. This can absolutely take hours out of your journey time, and you can only get better by doing it, I would say. So first things first, that's the topping lift, that's the Spinnaker halyard, both on the starboard side. And with this boat, doing a starboard pole hoist is the best way to do things, because both of those ropes come out of the mast about here, and we put the pole on the deck like that. As you can see, it's just going through the bow a little bit, and you can see the green, which is the guy line, is through the teeth, and the sheet, which is the red and white, is on top. And I've got the topping lift here clipped in there so that it stays out of the way of the head sail at the moment. With the lines, the sheet is the red and white that clips onto the sail. The green is the guy that clips onto the sheet. It goes forward, it goes above and outside of everything, and then comes back down the boat along outside of everything, especially the sheet. The guy eventually comes into the boat just here through this turning block, comes along the deck and onto the winch drum. The setup on the other side is similar, but because this will be the lazy guy, I haven't put it on the drum. We'll left the head sail on there. This sheet here is the one that's going to work, because once I've put them through the turning block, what I do is I put a little slip overhand knot in them, just to make sure they don't run out the back of the boat. The Spinnaker halyard, this one, I leave until the very last minute, and I've got the bag on there. The bag is clipped on to the rail, and the sail is velcroed into the bag. So it should just be a case of put the halyard on, unzip the velcro and go for the hoist, once of course we have the pole in place. Okay, so I'm now going to go for it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the very last rope that I put on is the halyard. So I have given myself a bit of slack back to the back, outside of everything. Velcro off the head. Put that in there. That is now ready to go. I then want to take the guy out and just give it a little bit of, lead it a little bit forward. I'm now going to take this one out. So I'm going to set the pole. So I undo the clip there and I get the topping lift. Just a tiny bit muffled at this point. What I'm doing at the moment is setting the pole. I have unclipped the topping lift from the back end of the pole itself, so making sure that it is underneath the sheet, and then I run the pole up to about my head height, which is about 5.5 feet above the deck, and then using the topping lift I can lift the pole because I had freed off the downhole to get it at about the right height. I could now then snake the guy just towards the end. What I'm going to do is I'm now going to come back into the boat and I'm going to take the slack down. That's the slack down on the topping lift. Make sure that's all nice and neat. The other thing I'm going to do just now is I'm just going to make sure that there is a tiny bit of weight on the downhole, making sure they're both in on both sides. So that is the pole in place. I'm going to go downwind a bit further. 30 degrees downwind, just to make sure there's very little wind in the sail itself. I am going to pull the guy a little bit aft. That's a bit too far. Right, I reckon I can now go for the hoist. All the way to the top. I put it in that jammer there. I'm now going to come back into the boat and I'm going to come a little bit further right. And at the same time, I'm going to bring the guy backwards. Once the guy is backwards, the weight comes into the head sail. And now sheet in on that, and we're on. So bring the guy out of the water, and it's now time to
take down the head sail.
Roll up the head sail. As we sheeted in the Spinnaker, having come up onto the wind, our speed went from just under 4 to nearly 6. Great.
Okay.
And I'm getting rid of that, so it's now on the jammer.
Brilliant. Okay.
Well, that's the kite up. There's a little bit of ropage to be tidied up, and one of the things I do, as you can see just over my shoulder here, is I have the halyard coiled down ready to drop if I need it. But this will get us a long way down towards where we want to go. We're very lucky the sea is absolutely flat because we're in the lee of Coal. There's a nice 8, 10, maybe 12 knots of breeze, little white horses going, but we're going really nicely, and it's as stable as a stable thing, which is nice. Elizabeth and I were chatting about Spinnaker trim, and I think there's a lot of ropes and there's a lot of little tweaks that can be done, but there are some, I think, relatively straightforward rules. One is get your main into the right position for the point of sailing that you're on, then set the pole such that it is in direct line with it, and that is likely to be absolutely perpendicular to the direction of the apparent wind. Once you've got that set up, then ease the sheet until the leading edge of the sail starts to curl, and then bring the sheet in ever so gently. So it really is a case of, is the main in the right position, is the pole in the right position, is the sheet sufficiently tight that the luff is just curling. And if you do those things in that order, that'll be fine. The other thing you want to remember is every time you adjust the pole, you will need to tweak the pole downhole, either to just put the weight on it as you bring it forward, or to ease it off. Otherwise you'll end up trying to pull the downhole out of the deck by using the guy itself, which is not great. A frequent problem with flying spinnakers is the ropes. Now that's the guy and that's on the drum and that's fine, but this is the lazy spinnaker sheet. We know that it's good to run. I just put this little overhand knot on and then left the line there. Similarly, the working sheet is fine. With the lazy guy, I've just put a couple of turns around that drum just to make sure it doesn't ease itself into the water. The lazy head sail sheets I've got just sitting inside the boat underneath everything, and only when I need to get the head sail out will I bring those to the fore. Gonna have to put a jibe in, so we're pretty much dead downwind. 5 things I need to check in this. 1, I've got the working sheet reasonably tight. Then I need to take the weight on the about to be working sheet and make sure that's free to run. So I've got a little bit of weight on that. Then I can ease the working guy because it's not really doing anything anymore. And I need to be able to make sure that one is free to run because that is going to be working. And I'm just going to come a little bit further downwind just to keep it right. I'm also going to lower the pole very slightly. I'm now going to go up to the mast.
What I'm doing here is I'm leaning down and grabbing hold of the about to be working guy, and I also need to grab the head sail sheet on the port side to make sure that that goes over the top of the pole. But once I've got both of those lines, I can then move back to the center line, and then I tend to put my back to the mast and then disconnect the inboard end of the pole, move it forward and outboard, make sure the headsail sheet is over the top, and then make sure the new guy is into the jaws, and then as the pole comes across I clear out the old guy and hook it in. At this point the guy is now, or the pole is now jibed. It's still not doing a huge amount of work, but I can then come back and jibe the boat.
A couple of switches to the other side, jibe the main, ease the sheet whilst taking up on the guy. That's it. Okay. And then I can start to sheet in on the working side. And now I can ease that forward. And that's fine. Guy on, sheet on, Oops, a little bit tighter. I'm going to come a tiny bit further left, because we can afford to do that now. Good. And the very last thing I need to do is just put a tiny bit more weight in the topping lift. There we go. Okay. Right, I'm going to go and recover the kite. What I've got to do is get the head sail out first.
This is the exciting bit.
Couple of things going on here. I've lowered the spinnaker just a little bit, and I need to make sure I do that when there isn't a sudden gust, but that gets the spinnaker down close to the level of the water, and then grab the guy line and then start to pull that in underneath everything. And what I try to do is work all the way along the foot so that I have collapsed any ability of the sail to billow out. I want to get the whole sail down, and what I'm doing here is stuffing it into the bag as quickly as I can.
It's been a very, very lovely day sailing down from Egg round the Point of Ardnamurchan, down past Col, and now heading into the Sound of Ulva and Ulva Ferry, and quite a bit of it was done under the Spinnaker, and I hope that what I've put together helps convince you that Spinnakers aren't just for racing, and Spinnakers aren't just for big crews. I absolutely don't get it right all the time, and I do need to work harder at thinking through what's going to happen in what order. But actually, if we hadn't had the kite up, I think we would have been motoring 2 or 3 hours ago, maybe even. I mean, we probably put the kite up at around about 11:30, and we've only just taken it down at 2:30, something like that. So it was a very, very, very lovely sail. It was particularly mellow, just exactly the right wind conditions. Yeah, and I should do it more frequently. We haven't really had much of a chance to have the kite up for the last little while, not since our nearly arrival in Scotland. On the few occasions when it looked possible, it was very changeable, and we decided not to do it. But this was nice and stable, kite up, lots of sea room, just great. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Bye.